All right. So once again, we're going to be recording the session. Please feel free to turn off your cameras, mute yourself, and yeah, let's start. So today's agenda, we're just going to do a welcome with brief introductory, sorry, brief introductions. We'll talk about the academic editor role. We'll spend about 30 minutes on that, and then we'll have a section for Q&A. And then we'll close it out, as well as we'll have separate into breakout rooms to so that each one of us can kind of have like a social hour where you can talk to amongst each other about kind of your interest, anything you like. And yeah, let's start. So my name is Charles. I am an editorial research associate with PLOS One. I've been working with PLOS One, well, PLOS now in general now, for about 7 years. My duties are to make sure that we have an editorial board that's representative of the submissions we get. So, namely, it means that we have enough people in a certain subject area, we have sufficient geographical diversity, and I also do a bit of internal research, which is looking for ways to improve the experience for our academic editors. So, Nesha, would you introduce yourself as well?
Hi, everyone. I'm Anisha. I'm a staff editor and an associate editor with PLOS One. I mainly work in the behavioral neurosciences, social sciences, and mental health division. And I'm responsible for kind of the general staff editorial roles and assessing the manuscript as well as handling communication with your academic editors and making sure that the manuscripts that we do get meet PLOS One's publication criteria well.
All right, so I'm gonna launch a quick poll to get a feel of kind of how everyone's been. Quick introductions for everyone. So if you can, please fill out the poll that I just sent out right now. And yeah, I'm looking forward to learning a bit more about all of you and where you're calling from, how long you've been a researcher. So I'll give you guys about a minute. All right, looks like we got all our responses. So I'm ending the poll. It looks like all the attendees here today are for PLOS One. That's great. A lot of you have more than 10 years of in active research, so that is awesome. We do have a range of people who are 5 to 10 years and also one who is a more early career researcher. And most of you appear to be in one or more editorial boards, so that's awesome. We also have people from a wide range of geographic areas. So let me just move on to our next slide. So the PLOS One editorial board, sorry, the PLOS editorial boards, we have a broad coverage in geography, career stage, subject areas. We have two specific roles. We have the section editors who advise more on subject-specific issues in manuscripts, and they also participate in section engagement, which means they work with building communities within their specific subject areas. Academic editors, sorry, the section editors serve more of as advisory role, whereas academic editors, which is you guys, oversee the peer review process and are responsible to a large degree for what we publish or not. And we typically identify potential academic editors through our web intake forms, subject area invitations or referrals. And you can find all the editorial board members in the respective journal page. So if you look for, say, like one, you can find them on this link, which is the one editorial board, and this is updated pretty regularly. So academic editors play an important role. You oversee the peer review process from the beginning and end. You take responsibility for conducting an initial assessment based on a PLOS publication criteria. You find and invite reviewers, you assess their feedback, you make editorial decisions, and you communicate the decisions to those authors. You play a very active role in the community and are highly engaged as representatives of PLOS. You also uphold and maintain the PLOS Code of Conduct, namely with upholding research ethics and integrity, abiding by a high standard set by the scientific community, and modeling that in your work for PLOS. You do selfless editing and peer review. You conduct peer review without self-interest. You do not advance your own work, and you recuse yourself from manuscripts where you might have potential or perceived conflicts of interest. You uphold ethical peer review. You're aware of peer review violations, and you report it to the journal. You uphold it with confidentiality. You don't discuss research outside with outside parties before publications, and you alert the journal to any potential breaches of confidentiality. You exercise your editorial judgment and quality, so you support high quality and timely peer review, and you dedicate yourself to actively edit manuscripts. You support diversity, equity, inclusion, so you're aware of your own bias, including unconscious ones, and how it'll affect your work. You're inclusive and you encourage others to do so as well, and you take action to prevent bias towards any individual, group, or region. And you exercise values in action. You represent PLOS values and treat all individuals with kindness and respect. You report any instances of potential discrimination or harassment, and you're mindful of how your editorial actions impact the career and lives of authors and reviewers. You also declare all institutional and commercial affiliations when you join the editorial board and notify the journal staff of any significant changes. So you can read the full code of conduct. I'm going to post a link on a chat here, so if you want to refer to it for the future. So I'm going to go briefly on how to get started on Editorial Manager, namely updating your information, indicating your areas of expertise, and then setting on your unavailability dates. So you can also find this information on this link here in case you want to refer to it later on. So many of you have probably have an account on an editorial manager system. As soon as you're onboarded as an AE to log in for your AE role, you'll need to make sure that you're logging in, entering your login with password, and then clicking on editor login and making sure your role reflects academic editor. You'll want to indicate your area of expertise, and this is important because it helps us with matching the correct manuscripts to your relevant expertise. So if you click on your name on the top right navigation bar and click on Update Information, you'll have a list of area personal classifications and also personal keywords. So we ask that you select terms from our taxonomy. Different journals have different taxonomy, but since all of you are working on one, it should be the same taxonomy. So why this is important is because for our journals, the classification is one of the ways that we use to look at what your expertise is and make sure that it aligns with the papers that we're sending you invitations on. Personal keywords are also important because they help our algorithm determine additional terms that might not be covered in our taxonomy. So please include those as well. Once you selected your term, you can add it. You can also add higher level terms to it. And once you're done, submit changes. So as mentioned before, you can add personal free text keywords. This is especially helpful for those terms that are not covered by our taxonomy because science is a pretty fast evolving field. And once you're done, you can save the window and it should show up on your information page. We'll also want you to update our other information, including linking this to ORCID. If you don't have an ORCID, I believe it does ask you to create an ORCID account. We'll also would like you to have your personal institution related information updated so that when we do send you information, it is to the most up-to-date email address. We'll also be aware of like any institution. Please make us aware of any institutional changes at when it happens, so that we can also make those changes to your account, or you can do it yourself. Lastly, unavailability dates are very important because they'll let us know that that's the time that you would not like to receive manuscript invitations. So when you find that you might be too busy, or if you're going to be away from the computer, or for any other reason, um, please set this, and we'll limit the amount of invitations that come to you until after that period. So from the academic editor main menu on the editorial manager system, we have a number of different items. We have the to-do list, we have submissions and decisions, submissions with a number of reviews complete, and then we have administrative functions. The to-do list is where you'll find new invitations, new assignments, basically everything that is kind of in your bucket right now. So there's an example of how the screen would look. From the invitations, this is how you respond to the manuscript invitations directly. You can do that from email or through this from your account page here. And for the main menu, you have the following for pending manuscript invitations. You can view the submissions. You can either accept or decline invitation. If you do decline, you'll be prompted to enter a reason for decline. Please be aware, we read these, and they help us with determining if a certain manuscript is within your area of expertise. So if it's outside of your area of expertise, please mark it. If there's any other reason, maybe you want to highlight some issues with the manuscript or additional reasons for why you would not like take them on, please put other and then put the reason for decline, and our staff will read it. So new assignments, that's where you will receive manuscripts that require initial action. And then there will also be submissions that require reviews complete, requiring additional reviewers, or one or more late reviews. And these are organized in such a way that you can take a specific action. There will also be submissions and active discussions. So if a staff editor has a submission they would like your input on, they'll contact you via discussion. You will also receive an email notification, which provides a link to discussion, and you can access all your open discussions through this menu. And then there will be reviews in progress, which is papers where reviews have been secured and the manuscript is awaiting your response or review. We also have the submissions with decisions, where you navigate to manuscripts for which you have issued a decision. Ones with a number of reviews completed, as well as administrative functions like registering a new user. And this is something that happens when you typically invite a new reviewer that's not in our system. You have to register them, mainly put in their name, their email address, and their country. So the action menu is where you'll conduct most of your editorial academic editor activities. More information is found below here, such as viewing a submission. You'll look at particular items such as, well, you want to pay attention to particular items such as the opposed reviewers, reviewers that authors do not like to review. Sometimes we do have a bit of confusion where the authors would put the recommended reviewers on the opposed reviewers section, so please be aware of that. We also have additional information, which is financial disclosures, competing interests, ethics statements, and availability of data. You can also access high-resolution versions of each figure by clicking on the specific link where the figure appears on, and then you'll also find supporting documents here. Another important part of it is you'll also want to look at manuscript details, which includes notes, who the authors are, the abstract, keywords, reviewer statuses. Namely, you want to keep an eye for information for editors, which is where the staff office will leave specific questions or guidance for you. So please keep that in mind. And then you'll also find at the bottom of the details page additional information such as competing interests and maybe some suggestions. You can also access the history, which is a chronological listing of all things that happen in the manuscript, including which reviewers have been invited, what correspondence has gone through between the authors. And it's very useful if you handle a manuscript that was previously assigned to an academic editor or transferred to another journal, so you can look at the full peer review history up to that point. There is file inventory, which contains all the files, including the cover letter, manuscript, and the detailed figures page. And you can also invite reviewers from from that menu. So during your reviewer search, you can search for a reviewer directly, or if you want to see whether or not an author suggested reviewer is in our system, you can go through with this menu. And if your desired reviewer is in our database, their profile will appear in the search results, as well as some of the statistics about whether or not they accepted invitations in the past and the number of reviews they have done. If they're not in the database, you'll have to register them. And to invite a new reviewer, you click on the invite box. We suggest that you don't invite many reviewers all at once because you might have multiple reviewers who agreed, and that takes up a lot of time that's unnecessary. Because if you secured one or two reviewers, unless there's other situations that happen, we would ask that you would select alternatives, and alternative reviewers will be automatically invited when invited reviewers decline. So please keep that in mind that we ideally don't want to bombard a lot of people with invitations if we don't have to. And you can continue searching reviewers using the search fields after you make the selection. EM will remember which reviewers you selected. Additionally, we do have a tool called the Web of Science Reviewer Locator. And what this does is it will return a list of suggested reviewers from the Web of Science. Keep in mind that before you invite anyone, you will still need to vet them, do a search of their publication history, making sure they're have the appropriate seniority. If possible, you will want to view their research profile and publications to see what's on their Web Science profile before inviting them, just to make sure they have the appropriate publications, the experience to assess these papers. And once again, similar to before, to invite the reviewer, you want to go to invite box. We don't want to invite a huge chunk of reviewers all at once. Ideally, what we do is we invite 3 and then set the rest as alternative. And once again, if they're not part of the system, there will be you will have to register them. But through the Web of Science locator, that's going to be done through their system, so you don't need to do any additional actions. So to register a new reviewer, many times they're in the reviewer database already, but if you're not, you're going to have to provide the reviewer's email address. You'll provide some of their personal information. As mentioned before, you'll need to provide the first, last name, as well as their country at the bare minimum. And then once you're complete, you register the user and send a letter, and send a proxy registration letter, which is as shown, notifying them that their account has been registered in the editorial manager system. And then you can now select the desired reviewer and begin sending invitations. And once you finish making your selections, you'll click proceed, and the system will send the invites as well as queue up the alternate reviewers. The default days to review is 10, but you may adjust this. Typically, reviewers will take an average of 10 days to complete the reviews, and the reviewers can always request extension. You can also customize the letter if you want to add personal notes or things that you want to make of note to the reviewer before they review the manuscript. So on the manuscript actions page, you can go to the review status section and click on the invite reviewers page, so you can see the statuses all your reviewer invitations, as well as decline reasons, and check whether or not there are still any outstanding alternative reviewers and whether or not you might have to invite additional ones. On a revised manuscript, ideally you would re-invite previous reviewers to review the new version of the manuscript. So you can do that with a new tab up on top that says previous reviewers. And then as with before, you would select the previous reviewers, click invite, and select proceed. And then the appropriate letter template should be populated. And all you would have to do is customize if you want to send a personal or note or anything different from the usual template, and then you would confirm selections and proceed. From that page, you can also view reviews and comments. So to review the reviewer comments, you would just click on the suggested reviewer decision type for each reviewer individually. So if you look at this menu here, you see that there's include text for minor revision. You would click that and you would see the reviews. And then once all the reviewers have submitted their recommendations, you would be able to write your decision, and then you would be able to submit it. So you would select your decision type from the decision menu, and you would select either accept, minor revision, major revision, or reject. And then you will have a draft page with all the reviewer comments to the authors, as well as your decision letter. So you would click proceed and replace all the boilerplate text with your comments. And you must add context to the editorial decision by removing this text. You cannot leave this boilerplate text on here. So please keep that in mind. Once that's complete, you submit the decision letter, and then you draft the letter, and then you would and then the decision would be issued. Additionally, you can send ad hoc emails to any of the manuscript contributors or the journal office. For example, if you have a question about a specific part of the manuscript that you're not sure of, you can send editor query to author. You can ask us directly editor query to the journal office. If there's any issues that you notice, you can query the reviewer as well to get some clarification on maybe some of the recommendations. And then we have additional resources on the bottom here. So if you click the link I provided, that should link you to the resources as well. And you can always email us at plos@plos.org. All right, well, that was a lot of information, but hopefully with those links, you can also look over it in case anything is unclear, and you can also refer back to the recording once it's available. And I'm going to go briefly over the life of the manuscript and how it goes through the peer review process. The life of manuscript starts as soon as the author submits a manuscript. It'll go through initial tech check, which is when we'll look at formatting, whether or not things are, the images are presented correctly and clearly, whether or not all the information is available. And then what will happen will be it'll proceed to subscan. And during subscan, staff editor, such as Anisha, will look through, among other things, whether or not the submission is within scope, whether or not it meets our publication criteria, whether or not the ethics statements are appropriately filled out. At this stage, manuscript can get desk rejected for a number of reasons, including maybe their ethics statement might not be meeting our guidelines. And then if that passes subscan, it'll go to academic editor assignment, where we'll send invitations to academic editors based on the classifications they selected. And we'll try to match them with the most relevant manuscript. At that time, if an academic editor accepts an invitation, they can either reject without reviews if they've noticed that there are concerns with the manuscript, where the manuscript does not meet our publication criteria from the get-go. If not, then the academic editor would invite reviewers, in which case we would solicit reviews. The reviews would be secured, the AE submits the decision, and then we would have technical checks, and the decision would be sent to the authors, either reject, revise, in which case the author submits the revised manuscript, it goes through another technical check, and then usually the academic editor who handles that manuscript previously would be assigned to that paper again for the process to go through until either another revised decision is issued, it's accepted, or it's rejected. And then once the accept decision is issued, we'll have final technical check. It goes into production, and then it's published. So invitations to handle manuscripts, some things that I mentioned before, the classifications are very important. They typically come through the email. You can also look through it through the editorial manager on your to-do list. Most are sent by an algorithm on PLOS One and PLOS GPH. These are done by our match algorithm. And for climate, mental health, and water, these are done term-based matching, which is what we refer to as classifications. And you always have the choice to accept or decline invitations. Do not feel forced to select an invitation because you feel like you have to. So I'm going to, hold on one second. I'm going to open this quick guide, and I'm going to also put the link on our chat so you can access it. So when you receive a manuscript invitation, this is a breakdown of what the email usually includes. It includes the journal and manuscript number on the subject line. They will have a list of authors, so you can check if you might have a competing interest. If you do, we ask that you recuse yourself and decline the invitation. You can also click on the link to go to Editorial Manager to either download the full submission or to accept or decline the invitation. Ideally, you would accept or decline this assignment within 24 hours, but we ask that you respond as soon as you're able. And There's also information about whether or not the authors have opted for the published peer review history. That's something that you can click on to find out more information on your own. You can accept the invitation through the email link directly by clicking accept, or you could click decline. And usually what happens is that academic editors are inviting queues. So for example, as I mentioned, like reviewers, we would queue 3 academic editors or so, depending on the journal. We might queue more, and whoever declines will trigger the next invite to be sent. So it sometimes happened that when you try to accept, it would not work because an academic editor has already accepted that invitation prior to clicking that button, just because of how the queue works. You can decline invitation directly through email or through your to-do list once again. And they will also have a contact at the end for the journal that email that you will need if you would have any questions or any additional support. So for most submissions, invitations are informed by the matches of the PLOS taxonomy classification terms between the manuscript and your profile in the editorial manager. For PLOS One and PLOS Global Health submissions, invitations are sent by a natural language processing algorithm known as PLOS Match. So PLOS Match takes the text of your authored papers, your profile content, including what you write as your biography, your classification terms, your keywords, and over time, the papers that you handle as PLOS to create a similarity score between the papers you handled, the information on your biography, the previous papers that you've published, and it will build a queue of editors to invite with that relevant similarity score. Once again, academic editors are invited in queues, paced by EM or triggered by an A who earlier in the queue declines the invite. If all the editors in the queue either decline or do not respond, PLOS staff usually looks at these papers and manually sends invitations based on your classifications, keywords, and sections. That's why it's really important to keep all these terms up to date. When you create your profile, please select at least 10 personal classification terms if you can. The step-by-step instructions were mentioned before, but feel free to refer to them in the PLOS Academic Editor's Guide to Editorial Manager that I provided in the link earlier. So to respond to manuscript invitation, this is the general peer review timeline and guidance to kind of help you decide whether or not you'll want to accept it or decline an invitation. In general, the timeline can change depending on your subject area. So these are kind of the rules of thumbs. They might not apply to certain subject areas where it might be longer or it might be shorter. But in general, we ask that you complete your initial evaluation in 3 days. You start finding and securing viewers in 1 to 2 weeks. And then it takes 2 to 3 weeks for revision. For peer reviewers to provide the recommendations, and then a decision letter to be issued in 3 days after all the recommendations are provided. And this is going to be repeating for each revision cycle. So please consider invitation only when you believe you have the time to handle the submission all the way through to the final decision, that the paper is in your area of expertise, that you have no competing interests, and it is suitable. It is not. When it is not suitable for peer review, so you can issue a reject without review so that the authors get feedback immediately. Consider declining an invitation if you are too busy, if it's outside your expertise, or if you have real or perceived competing interests. So because of how I mentioned before, where a lot of the papers are for one and GPH are done through an algorithm, there's a fair chance that you will receive papers that are outside your expertise. Please decline those so the algorithm learns from that. Additionally, due to the disciplinary nature of PLOS journals and the term-based nature of the invitations, you will receive some invitations that are outside the core area, but if you feel comfortable enough with handling that paper, please identify suitable reviewers and put their comments into context for authors. We suggest that you prioritize people with the appropriate expertise to cover any gaps. If you feel concerned that you may not be able to identify the reviewers with appropriate expertise or your ability to interpret their comments, please decline invitation. And if you feel a manuscript is in your area of expertise and you have the time but is not suitable for peer review, we ask that you accept it and issue a reject decision and cite the appropriate publication criteria. So we get a lot of frequently asked questions about reviewer invitations, including how many invitations I'm expected to agree to handle. You're not expected to accept all invitations that are sent to you, but we do expect academic editors to strive to handle on average of 1 to 2 manuscripts assignments per month and a minimum of 6 per year. The volume of invitations varies due to submission volume, the availability of other editors in your subject area, and how well the classifications that you select or your the body of text that the algorithm goes on matches with the submissions. If you do accept an invitation, we ask that you please handle it to final decision. If you do receive too many, too few, or too outside of your area expertise invitations, once again, the algorithm is not perfect and term-to-term matching is not perfect either. So if you have a poor experience with a lot of invitations, too few invitations, too many out of expertise invitations, please contact us and we'll work to see if there's some way that we can adjust your profile so that you'll get more relevant invitations. Some people say that the invitations that says please accept or decline this assignment within 24 hours is a very fast turnaround. This is a guideline. We know that you have busy schedules, but on behalf of authors, we ask that you respond as soon as possible so they know. And lastly, some people encounter an issue where they agree to handle manuscript, but it says it's no longer available. And this is due to our queue system where academic editors are placed on a queue. If someone doesn't respond or decline an invitation, there might be a lag time. And it might be that when the invitation was sent to you, another academic editor has already accepted that invitation before you had a chance to respond. All right. So once again, this is a peer review timeline. We expect three days for initial evaluation, 1 to 2 weeks to find a secure reviewer, 2 to 3 weeks where the reviewers provide the recommendation, and then 3 days for decision. And this is repeated for every revision cycle. So I'm going to hand it off to you, Anesha. So I'm going to stop sharing.
Thank you, Charles. And start sharing that. Hopefully that's visible. Charles, can you confirm?
Yes, I can confirm. I see the slides.
Amazing, thanks. So I'll just be taking you through just some of the kind of key takeaway messages and some initial guidance steps about your initial evaluation of manuscripts for PLOS One in your case. So what I'm going to take you through is what you should be doing when you're assessing a manuscript. And mainly looking at how much it adheres to the PLOS publication criteria, what sort of information staff editors may have called attention to when you're invited to handle a manuscript, as well as your own kind of subject area expertise. And finally, what sort of decisions you can take, whether to send out for a peer review or reject without review. So the resource for this, and we've got a quick guide for this as well. I will just place a link for this in the chat. Okay, so in terms of the first thing that I spoke about, which is the publication criteria. So the publication criteria are the same for PLOS Climate, PLOS Global Public Health, Mental Health, PLOS One, and PLOS Water. So when you are conducting your initial evaluation, so before this is sent out for peer review, run the manuscript that you've received through the following criteria. So the first one says the study presents the results of original research. What we basically mean by this is that it is research that contributes to the base of knowledge, i.e. it makes somewhat of a contribution to what is already out there. It's important to stress that this is a little bit different from what we consider to be novelty. or perceived impact, because PLOS One and also for PLOS Climate, Global Public Health, Water and Mental Health, novelty or perceived impact is not a publication criteria. So we would request you not to reject just because of reasons of novelty. However, we do want to ensure that it makes a contribution of some sort to what has been already published on the topic. The second thing is about the results reported have not been published anywhere else. So if there have been any related manuscripts or any manuscripts which are in which are by the same authors, and you feel that investigate the same similar research question and have already been published elsewhere, this would not be applicable for publication in PLOS One again. The third one is experiments, statistics, and other analysis are performed to a high technical standard and are described in sufficient detail. So we want to make sure that the methodology, the analysis, and the statistics have been done in such a way that they are reproducible and robust. So any other researchers who are looking at this paper will be able to reproduce the results reported here properly. Fourth, the conclusions are presented in an appropriate fashion and are supported by the data. So you want to make sure that the conclusions that the authors are making are supported by the results that they've reported and are not overstated. Fifth, the article is presented in an intelligible fashion and is written in standard English. So PLOS One does not copy edit manuscripts, and we're not very rigid about what sort of English it is, as long as it is understandable and you can comprehend what the authors are trying to say, then that is allowed. The sixth category says research meets all applicable standards for ethics of experimentation and research integrity. So we want to make sure that the studies already follow all the ethics standards. We do have a lot of criteria in place before a submission does reach you to ensure that all the appropriate ethics are taken care of. So we try and do that. But of course, if you have identified any specific ethical concerns or anything to do with research integrity, please feel free to reach out to us if you're not sure what to do. And finally, the article adheres to appropriate reporting guidelines and community standards for data availability. So we want to make sure that the manuscripts that we handle, the data is fully available and accessible for everybody. And if not, a proper reasoning must be provided for it, say, for example, if it's very sensitive information. And of course, for more details about the publication criteria, you can visit the following links. So I will just show you the link for PLOS One. So the criteria for publication is reported on this website, and you can find it in the guide. And then there are submission guidelines, editorial and publishing policies as well, some of which Charles has gone through. So as we mentioned before, we want to consider all submissions or original research or research methods even contributing to the base of academic knowledge. We want to make sure the submitted manuscripts have methodological rigor and high ethical standards, regardless of perceived novelty. So what we want to make sure is when you are getting your email communications from PLOS, please kindly read all the email communications. Once you accept an invitation, as Charles shown, an automated email is sent to you containing guidance for what you need to do and any notes left by a staff editor. So as we mentioned before, it reaches you, a manuscript has already undergone a lot of technical editorial checks, but a staff editor may leave certain specific questions or guidance in the information for the academic editor section of your invitation acceptance confirmation email. These notes can also be found at the top of the information for editor section in the details page on Editorial Manager. So the next bit is about whether to peer review or reject a submission. So if you feel that a manuscript does not meet the publication criteria that I stated before, it is okay for you to reject this without inviting external reviewers. What we suggest, though, is in your decision letter to the editors, to the authors, please ensure you've provided enough information so the authors understand the reason for this decision, articulate your reasoning, and also specify the specific publication criteria that were not met, in your opinion. If you do decide to proceed with peer review, please keep in mind that all manuscripts must be evaluated by at least one external reviewer, although we recommend at least two, before they are accepted for publication. Generally, we recommend that you decide this within 4 days of agreeing to handle the manuscript. So, in which cases would we be rejecting without review? So when we find that there are serious methodological or analytical flaws that we feel cannot be addressed by peer review, if the conclusions are unsupported by the data, for example, the sample size is too small, when the hypothesis, the study rationale, methods, analysis, or results are quite weak or insufficiently detailed, so the reviewers cannot do their work properly. If the work is redundant without clearly referencing and discussing the existing literature. So the exceptions to such a case would be, say, for example, replication studies or reanalysis that's properly discuss what already exists in literature. And we advise you to look at the publication criteria too for this. Next, the apparent revisions would take the authors a few months to complete. So normally we give our authors 45 days to complete the first revision. However, for example, if in your view, a paper would require additional experiments, extensive reframing, extensive reanalysis, we prefer that you reject it without review rather than sending this out for peer review. But what you could do is provide them the opportunity for an open rejection with an invitation to resubmit if they cannot meet the 45-day revision deadline. In any other situation, we say that you should send this out for external peer review. So if you're handling a cross-sectional study, for example, there is a specific quality assessment tool. Just a second, if I can actually get to it. Oops. So there is a specific quality assessment tool, and we ask you to put yes or no in this situation and see if the manuscript meets it or not. And if you feel that it does not meet this quality assessment tool, we prefer that you proceed with rejection. Kind of the frequently asked questions. So what we get from a lot of our editors. So what to do if the manuscript is poor language. So this can be quite difficult to navigate. However, if you feel that the methodology is quite rigorous, but the language is poor, we advise you to include this as feedback in your revised decision rather than just rejecting it. If the language concerns persist after revision, you may consider a reject decision at this time. If you're unsure about anything, please contact the journal office and we'll be happy to advise you. PLOS, so to make sure that all research published in PLOS is available as quickly as possible, we do not copy edit manuscripts as a part of our production process. However, we have partnered with American Journal Expert and Edited to provide discounted services to authors who require any copy editing services. The manuscript does not have any results. So what we want you to do is make sure the correct article type has been selected. So while most manuscripts are classed as research articles, lab protocols, study protocols, and registered report protocols do not contain results. And you can read more about the article types by using one of the what we publish, the links above. And for more resources, as before, the Charles pointed out, you can look at any of these links. I'll just quickly go back to the slides now and talk about finding and securing reviewers. So we can go through again the quick guide for this. I will paste this in the chat as well. So what we want you to take away from this is basically first that all accepted manuscripts must have at least one external reviewer beside yourself. So, and the second thing is that the suitable reviewers must have proper expertise in the subject matter and methodology, are actively publishing and are unbiased. We know that securing reviewers can be challenging, and we have some tips that can help you. And finally, we want to make sure that you know the reviewers that are invited and invitations are managed in Editorial Manager. So, what do we mean by suitable reviewers? So, they are those that can provide a qualified and unbiased assessment of the scientific rigor. So, what we may want to make sure is that the reviewer has the necessary expertise both on the topic and the methods as well. You can, of course, assess this yourself, but as we said, before a manuscript reaches acceptance, it must have at least one external reviewer. So in terms of the reviewer checklist or what we consider to be appropriate, we have they should have published 5+ papers on the topic, preferably as the corresponding or the last author, have expertise in the research area and if possible the methodology, are at the postdoctoral or equivalent degree level, and are affiliated with an academic, government, not-for-profit, or public or private research institution or company. And what we also want to make sure is that any kind of competing interests have been either declared, or even if one of the reviewers may have a competing interest, the other one should not. So what you need to make sure before inviting a reviewer is to make sure that they do not have a competing interest. What we mean by this is they should not have published or collaborated in any form with any of the authors on a manuscript in the last 5 years. Apart from, for example, to review a rebuttal, which is a direct, for example, replication, which may or may not have the same results as a paper that has been published before, in which case we do invite the author of the paper to which it is a rebuttal in order to provide their comments. If you do make an exception and invite a reviewer with a competing interest, they must declare their competing interest on the review form. And you must also ensure that you receive input from at least one other objective reviewer. As we said, what do we mean by this competing interest? They do not work at the same institution, are not listed in the opposed review section of the submission. They have not collaborated or published with any of the author in the past 5 years, and are not located at the same institute as another reviewer. Generally speaking, and these are some reviewer tips from other editors. So we recommend you find any reviewers in 3 stages. Firstly, researchers that you know. Because they know you, of course, they're more likely to accept an invitation. As long as you are mindful of these competing interests and make sure that these are evaluated before sending these out for review, it should be fine. Researchers whose work you know, for example, people whose work you might know from literature, conferences, etc. You may not know them personally, but their experience is, of course, on topic. And finally, for the broader search, as Charles has pointed out before, we've got the Web of Science Reviewer Locator with the list of suggested reviewer. And please make sure that you run them through the checklist before inviting them. So the same kind of checklist as we have shown you above here. You can also use databases like PubMed, Google Scholars, and find articles similar to the one that you're looking on and look at the first and last author and invite people that way. You can also check out the reference list in the article, for example. But as we said, please be mindful of the competing interests. Some additional tips are that early career researchers, we said that, of course, postdoctoral researchers would be better, but PhD researcher, early career researchers tend to have more time than senior researchers, so they would be a good go-to. Try and personalize the invitation template to help you secure reviewers. You can also set up alternate reviewers, which can save you from multiple visits to Editorial Manager. These are automatically invited when a previous reviewer does not respond. We also encourage co-reviewing as a great way to gain peer review experience. So you can invite a more senior researcher with encouragement that they might invite a junior PhD student, for example, with encouragement to co-review. And if necessary, we do help with statistical reviews. For clinical trials, we do this automatically. And kind of the best practices, you want to avoid repeatedly going through the same reviewers. Try and approach reviewers outside of your own institute, and you can utilize databases outside of editorial manager. And in terms of inviting reviewers on editorial manager, please note that editorial manager itself is an uncurated database of contact information. We do not recommend you use it to search. If a reviewer already has an account on IEM, you might be able to see certain basic statistics on their contribution. You can use the view the invite section of the PLOS academic editors for more screenshot tips and guides on how to look them up by email and so on. We know that getting reviewers is very challenging. People are busy. Aim to try and start inviting reviewers as soon as possible. For every 8 reviewers, expect to spend about an hour searching for them and then navigating editorial manager. As we said, please be sure to check your emails. All manuscript communications, including reviewer status updates and important reminders, occur over email. And it is your duty and your role as an academic manager to manage the peer review process and ensure that the reviews are timely secured. Some kind of frequently asked questions. So how many reviewers should we invite at once? We say about 8 reviewers in the first round, and then keep queuing the rest of them as alternates. Editorial manager will check the status of the complete or agreed reviews before inviting your alternates. This ensures that you do not end up with too many completed reviews, which can be very difficult for authors to address too many reviews, and it also creates extra work for yourself. Can I use PLOS's reviewer database to search for reviewers? To enable proxy registration by editorial board members, the editorial board database, as we said, is uncurated. So please verify the expertise and current contact information and then use EM to send invitations. We understand 10 days is a short turnaround time, so you may increase this deadline, but we do not recommend increasing it to more than 21 days to ensure that the authors get back their revisions in a timely manner. Do you have to send reminders? So editorial manager is already set up to support you. So we already have automatic reminders in place. So invited reviewers are sent an initial invitation plus 2 reminder emails before being uninvited. And if an invitation expires, you can re-invite that reviewer again if you wish. And agreed reviewers are typically given 10 days before from when they can accept the invitation. They are sent reminders before the due date, on the due date, and of course after they are overdue as well. And finally, they are re-signed after 16 days. At any time during the process, you can reply to the emails requiring an extension, and we try and grant extension within 2 weeks. And if more than that, we try and check with you. Why was a late reviewer terminated? So reviews are by default due 10 days after, with an additional grace period of 6 days for a total of 16 days. So if this has not happened in that time, the secured reviewers are automatically unsigned. So if you are sure that the reviewer is going to submit their review, you can re-invite them in editorial manager. If all the invited reviewers declined, can I reject a paper if I can't secure any reviewers? So rejection decisions should be made only based on publication criteria, not because you're having difficulty securing reviewers. However, you might yourself want to reevaluate the manuscript against the publication criteria and see if it should be rejected. If you can secure feedback from only one reviewer, we try and encourage that you proceed to make a decision. While 2 is preferred, our policy is that all accepted manuscripts must be reviewed by at least one external reviewer. You may review the manuscript as a second reviewer, but please make sure that you sign your name in the review or clearly indicate in the decision letter which one of the 2 reviewers you are. If no one has agreed to review after 4 weeks and you've exhausted all your potential opportunities, please contact us and discuss the next course of action. Okay. And finally, in terms of assessing reviews and making decisions, just place the guide over here. So in terms of assessing and adjudicating the reviewer feedback, we use a structured review form to help our reviewers focus on our publication criteria, and you will receive the reviews in the same format. So of course, this is an opportunity for scientific debate. You may come across a review that's unfocused or two or more reviews are split. In these situations, you have the authority as an academic editor to issue the decision based on your assessment of the paper. In these situations, what we want to make sure, or what you might want to do, is decide which reviewer comments are necessary for the authors to address and which ones are not necessary. We recommend you do not edit the reviewer comments directly. In your comments, explain to the authors which part of the review report they can disregard, and also respect the reviewer's dignity. Please give weight to the reviewer's comments based on individual expertise. So, for example, if a reviewer you've selected has a specialized background that may be able to address some aspects of the paper more than others, please assess their feedback on those aspects accordingly. If you feel you cannot make a decision on your own, consider asking the reviewers to expand their comments, or as a last resort, try and get help from another additional reviewer. You can also send emails to reviewers directly from the send email action on the manuscript. You can find actions and template text for common peer review situation in our editor's guide. So this guide has kind of a full guide to how to go about and help you make a decision. So we recommend you look at this. And if you need any sort of second opinion, you can, of course, get in touch with us. And in terms of making your editorial decision, we ask that you combine your assessment of the reviewer feedback with the publication criteria. So we have different options: major revision, minor revision, and accept, as well as reject. So major revision, we ask you to do this when the manuscript has potential to be published but may not be accepted if the authors do not address substantial issues. Please note that authors will have 45 days to revise this. So when you receive the submission, you may choose to re-invite the original reviewers to have another look, or proceed to the final decision yourself if you feel authors have addressed all the comments. In case of minor revision, this means that it needs some minor adjustments rather than major adjustments. Again, the authors in this case have 45 days to complete and resubmit. Upon resubmission, please verify that all of the requested changes were made, and you usually want to accept the manuscript at this stage if it's been a minor revision before rather than a major revision case, in which case you might want more than one cycle of revision. And accept this manuscript is appropriate exactly as it is. As we said, we do require one external review at least before an accept decision can be issued. In this case, the manuscript is just sent straight away to production and published. And in case of rejection, as we have mentioned before, this does not meet our publication criteria and substantial changes are required. If appropriate, you might issue an open rejection where you ask authors to resubmit after they've made a substantial revision at your discretion. In this case, no further action is required until and unless authors have requested an appeal of their decision. If you invited the authors to resubmit and they choose to do so, this is considered to be a new submission for us. We will handle the approach first, and then approach. We will look at the submission first and then approach you. And if you do not accept this, we will invite other academic editors. So in case of submissions which are at R1, so that means they've been through one stage of revision, you might determine at this stage that it is ready for publication. the original reviewers should be tried to be re-invited in order to in order to have a look and see if they're happy with all of the changes before making a decision. We ask that you try and avoid new reviewers as they might have their own comments until unless it's absolutely necessary, or the authors have not adequately responded to the comments from previous review, and you might decide to issue another revision or a rejection. We recommend that you aim for no more than 2 rounds of revision. And after authors submit their revision, the manuscript goes to the journal for a technical check and temporarily disappears from your account. But you will receive an automated email once this is back in your account, and then you can send it out either for review or you can have a look at it. Finally, the decision letter. So the decision letter is extremely important as it provides authors with critical guidance for all of the next steps to do with their manuscript. We provide some temple decision letter text and editorial manager that contain journal requests and auto-populate the reviewer comments, but it is your responsibility to customize these letters with context to the reviewer's email. So all minor, major, reject decision templates, you'll see this kind of a placeholder text. So please replace this placeholder text with your own comments. In terms of a good decision letter, please keep in mind the author. So what kind of constructive feedback would you like to give the author? You also want to give context to the reviews. So for example, if you feel some comments are more important than others or some should be disregarded, please provide these in the decision letter so the reviewers can understand your understanding, and also should provide clear direction for the authors to action. So indicate which comments are absolutely essential and which are optional, and authors should be able to revise the manuscript based on your guidance here. And please, in case of rejection, please make sure which publication criteria the manuscript fails to meet. And therefore, the authors can decide if they want to resubmit as a new submission. As Charles has mentioned before, you're expected to handle manuscripts through to a final decision, whether that's rejection or acceptance. If you're not able to complete your assignments, please let us know as soon as possible. You might encounter publication ethics concerns in the review process. So these might be things like excessive self-citation requests, which are against our code of conduct and policy. Please let us know and get in touch with PLOS. We also have, now we have a note in the decision letter already saying that these requested citations are not required. We also conduct a routine review of decisions. So staff editors like myself may reach out to you, especially if we notice things such as competing interests or, for example, unaddressed citation stacking, or we see that a submission does not clearly meet our publication criteria. Staff editors such as myself may reach out to you to discuss your decision. Authors can opt to publish their peer review history. If they do so, your decision letter will be published, and so will the peer review comments. And reviewers also receive a copy of your decision letter. We are a bit short on time, so I can't take you through the publication ethics FAQ, but I'm going to just quickly paste the link over here in the chat for you to go over. But please, if you have any queries at all, feel free to reach out to us with any further queries. And with that, I will hand back to Charles.
All right, thank you very much for that presentation. Let me just get back to my screen. So, like Anisha mentioned, all the resources for editors that we've gone through today are available on our webpage. You may access it through the respective journals, or if you want specific queries about manuscripts, you can contact us at +1@plus.org for those of PLOS, and then we have journal-specific mailboxes. If you need specific support as an academic academic editor, you can contact EdBoard support. We'll handle things like too many invitations, unavailability dates, if you need a certificate that you've been serving on the board, and so forth. So That information is all available on journal specific page. If you can't find what you're looking for, feel free just to contact us at the Ed Board support email, and we'll try to redirect you to the appropriate people who can help resolve that issue. So right now we're entering our Q&A session. I noticed that we had some questions at registration that I'm going to go through right now. One of the questions we received from one academic editor is, what is our policy regarding formal complaint after rejection for academic editors, and what to do if reviewers report in a foreign language? Anesha, would you be able to answer that?
Yes, so in terms of the foreign language, we expect all of our reviews to be submitted in English and English only. So if you have seen that a reviewer has submitted their review in a different language, you can use the send email function to reach out to them to submit their review once again in English. And if that's not possible at all, you can reach out to us and we can intervene on behalf of you to reach out to the reviewer. Could you repeat the first question? Sorry, Charles.
They asked what the policy is regarding a formal complaint after rejection for academic editors. I'm not quite sure if that's the author's complaining or some complaints from some other place. Um,
Right. So formal complaints, again, once again, authors can complain via again the links that we've got, say for example, the PLOS one at plos.org. The procedure is they come to us and then one of our team members looks at these and then educates whether there was any sort of a complaint. If the complaint was in fact clearly stated or not, and then we can decide whether we want to go ahead with an appeal on a manuscript or a resubmission. I hope I've answered that question.
yeah, I'm looking at the person who asked that question. Unfortunately, they're not online, so I guess
Right.
maybe they'll watch the recording and let us know if they have further questions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have a question here also about providing tips on efficient editorial workflow and recruiting reviewers. Have difficulty devoting time to understand the system. I think we covered that over the presentation, but this person would like to reach us directly for their specific concerns. We may do so as well. We also have a question about how to select the right reviewers. I believe Anesha just answered that. Um, and then the last question we have from registrants was any consideration of financial assistance to reviewers and editors. So PLOS does have a fee waiver, the APC fee waiver system that I can link. We also have a couple of new things in terms of moving away from the APC model, which is we have institutional sales, which works together with libraries, and then you can have a look at more of the institutional agreements to see if your institution is part of the ones where we have an agreement with, in which case your APC fee may be waived or you may be paying a flat fee. And I think that's it for our pre-registered questions. I'm opening the floor for general questions from any of the participants here today. So feel free to ask. And please unmute yourself if you do have questions to ask. I'll give everyone like 2 minutes if any questions come up. If not, I will be moving on to our social aspect of this. All right, doesn't seem like there are any questions. Yeah, feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can engage us on social media. We're on Blue Sky and on LinkedIn. Once again, if you have any specific questions about the academic editor role or any concerns you might have, feel free to reach us at board support. We're going to be turning off the recording right now. So let me just stop the recording. And then we have social time.